Okay, welcome to our Ask Autumn Q&A session with Forum 1's Director for Analytics, Autumn Rose. We'll be covering questions that you've been asking about Google Analytics and helping you to feel more comfortable with how you're using GA overall. You can join the conversation today through the questions panel on the right-hand side of the screen, as well as through Twitter. Our handle is @Forum1. And questions or comments can be left at the hashtag Forum1. Now, as we get started, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Christina Crawley. I'm the Marketing Director here at Forum1, based out of our Washington, D.C. office. The star of the hour today is Autumn Rose in the middle there. She leads all of our analytics work here at Forum1 and has been going through all your great questions as they've come in advance, and will continue to do so today as we address those live. And also joining us today is our account director, Martin Franzini, who works hand in hand with some of our largest partners on implementing smart designs and content based on what the analytics are telling us. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Autumn and Martin.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Tina.
Yeah, so our agenda today is very straightforward. You guys ask the questions, we give the answers. And as we go, we did select just 6 of the questions today. Amazingly, we had a really great response, which was fantastic. Kind of the breakdown today is that we ended up with half people who self-reported as being experienced, the other half being inexperienced or new to the program, our Google Analytics. So we tried to select a range of questions that kind of address kind of both interest levels as we go. And in addition to having the webinar posted online later, we actually created an additional blog post with links and resources and screenshots and additional feedback on how to actually execute on some of the ideas that we're going to be going through today. So you can check those out online in the next day or so. So let's dive in.
Cool. So the very first question that we got today is a great question, one that we should be asking ourselves frequently, and that is, how should Google Analytics not be used?
Yes, I'll say this question kind of surprised me when I first popped on, and I was like, you know what? I love this question because it doesn't get asked frequently enough. So the first things first is numbers do not describe feelings or motivations. When we look at a high bounce rate, it's easy to say, oh, people obviously didn't like X. We're able to kind of project our own feelings onto the data in order to explain things, but it's important not to do that. You know, there's a lot of reasons we can have a high bounce rate. Maybe the site doesn't load fast enough. Maybe the topic's not what people thought. Maybe it was written at a higher education level than your users are at. There are so many reasons or explanations for any given number that it's important to make sure that you're looking at it in context with other data and also other data sources. So by conducting usability testing or checking out surveys, you can understand the motivations of your users rather than kind of projecting your own thoughts onto some of the data. So that, first and foremost, with any analytics platform, is one of the more important things to keep in mind. The other thing is that Google Analytics focuses on aggregate behavior rather than the individual. This is a theme that we're going to be kind of bringing up a couple times during today's session, is that Google, while it can collect, it can integrate with your CMS, as in through Salesforce and other places in order to track an individual conversion point. So I know that Joe Schmo registered for my webinar. I know Jane Doe donated a nice piece of money towards our whatever fund, and that is being tracked in Salesforce through an integration piece. But Google is not set up to really track those long-term engagements with an individual. For those types of interactions that you want to make sure that you get a different platform, such as Kissmetrics, there's actually a huge range of these products coming on the market that are filling this gap in the last 3 years. And there's no one solution for everybody. But
so you would say that Kissmetrics is perhaps better aligned for CRMs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and thanks, Martin. That's exactly it. When you're doing integration with CRMs, you want to make sure that you're selecting the right tool. And Google Analytics, while out of the box does a lot, it's not that. So,
cool.
Yes.
So the next question that we had gotten was, what is the benefit of using Google Tag Manager, and how would you go about implementing it?
Okay, because we have half newbies on here, I want to just tell a smidgen about what Google Tag Manager is. Google Tag Manager is not a replacement for Google Analytics. It's literally a method of installing Google Analytics and a method of kind of injecting code into the site dynamically. So just knowing that it works in tandem with Google Analytics, and you can find out more in our blog post about how those things interact. But what it comes down to, the reason why I love Google Tag Manager is that it's faster custom implementations by non-developers, like myself. It really helps you get it more address your analytics needs in a more agile fashion. Your PM comes to you or your boss comes to you and says, I need data on X. It allows you to then start collecting data on X right away. And it also takes your updates out of the traditional release schedule. So if you work at a government organization or in a large organization where you're working with your IT group for monthly releases or quarterly releases on your site, you no longer have to wait or beg or plead with your developers to install things or make repairs later on.
Yeah, so there's no need to go through, let's say, a GitHub repo or any code deployment. It's done directly through the Tag Manager dashboard, right?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
Cool.
And it has a great little interactive dashboard that lets you do change management. But first and foremost, I do want to express as much caution as there is possible, because I see this all the time. I really recommend that you do your research and educate yourself on best practices, please God, before you implement Tag Manager. Tag Manager is fantastic in that it gives you all the rope you want to hang yourself. You become the full controller of the piece, but it also allows you to destroy your analytics. You can actually impact and have all your users collect all in one category. You can actually completely change your bounce rate. So things that collect as standard out of the box, you can actually really negatively impact by accident by misunderstanding or misinstalling specific tags within your site.
I learned that lesson the hard way, thinking that I knew my way around things when perhaps I was just trying to experiment with it, and I ended up breaking everything and had to get bailed out by somebody who did know what they were doing. The good news is that Tag Manager does have a testing component that recently got released, so you can actually play around with it without deploying, let's say, the tags themselves and potentially breaking your analytics to see whether you've done the installation correctly or the deployment correctly, but being able to undo things. So I would caution, perhaps play with that if you're not feeling as confident. Something, again, I should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have one question that's come in already. I figured I would just address it in case it's related. This is from Puneet. Do we get not provided keyword data in Google Webmaster Tools?
No, because those people do not want to provide it to you. So the reason why you get not provided is because people are either using incognito browsing, or they've turned off their cookies, or one of a million different reasons. Actually, there's lots of different security things that people can install, myself included. I'm not providing you what I've done for my keyword pieces. So Google, out of respecting the settings of what people's browser pieces are, does not collect, or just, well, it probably is collecting that data, but they're not giving it to us, as in the analytics users. So unfortunately, no, you're still going to get probably around 30 to 70% of keywords remain unreported. Sorry. But yeah, but Tag Manager can help you better install tracking for your internal search, and that can get you much better data because people can't turn that off. You can see what people are searching for within your site for a good thing. But in closing off this question, 3 things that I would recommend you educating yourself on decently before really ramping up in Tag Manager is get a good base knowledge of CSS and HTML. Get some basic understanding of JavaScript and really understand Google Analytics event tracking. How does it trigger? How does it work? What impacts everything? So
we did tell you, you don't need a developer, but then you kind of need to become your own developer on a simpler level. But yeah, it's still there is.
Yeah, there are different pieces. And to let you guys know, anyone who has been using Google Tag Manager historically, the end of August, Google Tag Manager relaunched its interface.
Right.
I went on vacation for 4 days, guys. I came back and everything changed. One of the bonuses of working with Google is that it's always updating itself, it's always changing, it's always growing, it's always expanding. The downside of that is that we, in turn, have to constantly grow and change and expand our knowledge base in order to keep up with it. So there are a lot of new features. I recommend that even if you're familiar with it, go and check them out. There's some fantastic things for use with Teams. So if you have multiple people working on your Tag Manager account, great. Being able to check things in and out so you're not conflicting with each other's work, which is great. So that in a nutshell, and you'll check out the blog post with instructions on how to install Tag Manager and a range of resources for educating yourself in these issues.
Cool. Next question was, what's the best way to tell what people click on for a given page? In-page analytics seem imprecise, so is there a better way?
Yeah, so I'd be interested in finding out how many people are using in-page analytics. I haven't necessarily done a survey on this recently, but historically, anyone who's used Google Analytics in the last, started back when, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, found that in-page analytics is a squirrely beast. It'll give you some data, but if you actually added up all the percentages of how people clicked, it'll end up being like 500% or 7,000%. They're not accurate. But you know what? They have, within the last year, really improved how in-page analytics works. There is a new functionality called enhanced link tracking. The key here is that you have to turn it on. Surprise. I just want to show you really quick, and there's a whole list of screenshots here in the blog post on how to turn it on. I'm just going to show you an example within the Forum 1 site. So if you have admin control of your own account, go to the property that you're working on. I'm going to be working on forum1.com, clicking on properties. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there's this great little thing that says enhanced link attribution. Enhanced link attribution allows you to track links on your page, but requires small changes to the tracking code. So this is a two-step process. The first step being you click here. That's easy enough. You click Save. The second piece is that there is an additional piece of code that you need to install along with the GA tracking code. It's just an extra line that goes along with the existing line. If you're not using Google Tag Manager, you can just contact your developer, send them a link that's included right here on how to do it. It's simply a single line, so there's not a lot of extra work. Just include it in your header. If you're using Tag Manager, there's also instructions on how to add that code through your Tag Manager. But the great piece of what this does is that it greatly impacts the reliability on in-page analytics and ensures if counts each link independently. So in an instance where you were on your site historically and there might have been like 3 links to your blog landing page. Let's say there was a navigation link to your blog, there was a promo feature in your blog, and there was maybe a footer link to your blog. You couldn't tell the difference of which one people clicked on. Now with the enhanced piece, you can. But there is a limitation to this. The key here, and this is why having a working knowledge of CSS and HTML is important, is depending on how your site built. If your developer included classes or IDs within each link or link area, Google can tell the difference. If each link area is not called out with a specific class or ID and everything's generic link, and best practices that you want to have at least some, you get much better data. So there is a limitation to this. It comes to like how well your site is tagged. If it's tagged, if you install this and you find that you're not getting the data you want, you might be worth talking or checking in with your developer to find out if you can help, if they can help just do a blanket update to call out some of the specifics. We had a question.
Yeah, we got just very related from Laura Rearman. She's wondering what kinds of things do the in-page analytics show? Just as like
in-page analytics. So I don't have it up on here for right now, but it's nice because on the top bar it gives you the basics of your page stats. So it gives you how many how many users came to your page, how many page views there were, average time on page, what your bounce rate is, exit rate, entrance rate. And then it's really nice. The reason I love it is because now I love it now that it's more accurate, is that it's an overlay on your actual page. So you'll actually see the page on your website that you're looking at, and each link will have a little annotation next to it that says how many times people clicked on that. So it really helps you understand pathing. So you'll understand, like, oh, is putting things at the top of the page really that important, that whole above the fold concept? Or are people scrolling well in order to see what are people clicking into?
Really useful to know, especially for digital marketers, when you have a landing page, for example, and you want to achieve that conversion, and it's going to happen on that page. It's a great way of testing how that page is doing.
Okay. Was there another question?
Yeah, there's a second one on in-page analytics.
Mm-hmm.
Does it track clicks on any external links?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it includes all links being clicked. So that's great. It does not display scrolls. So if you have, and this is for more of the advanced users, if you have Google Tag Manager installed and you are tracking how far users are scrolling on the page, In-Page Analytics does not display any of your event data.
This is important for those of you publishing long-form content in particular.
Yeah, so that's important to know. Because it might be an instance where people are not clicking on any of the content at the bottom of the page, but they are scrolling to the bottom of the page. So that's an important differentiator. So you can't, that goes back to the whole prescribing motivations to, the data. Is that you can't just say, no one got there, so we're not going to put any links at the bottom. No, people might just not like that link.
Right.
It doesn't matter. We don't know exactly. So that's the first way, and that's what I would say as a first step for everybody, is to turn on your enhanced link tracking and install the Better ID tracking piece. But there's another option also, specifically for those interested in marketing. So if you have a really important landing page, let's say that you're driving donations, or you're driving a major conversion on your site, whether you've published a new, great, very impactful report, or you have a home page that you really you redesigned it and you want to see how you're flowing or directing traffic through it, this can be a really handy piece. And this is for those of you who have Tag Manager installed or have the ability to do custom event tracking within your page. So rather than using, traditionally when we install event tags, we're tracking who clicked on what link, rather than where was that link. So what this is recommending, or what we're recommending here, is actually setting up your site to track which feature areas are being clicked on, so you can understand how they're being used. So a lot of sites have like a carousel of like 3 or 6 or 9 little feature-related items on the bottom of every page. A really good question is, how often are those clicked? How important are those? Getting an understanding of that, or taking a look, for this instance, at the Forum 1 page. So the way that we tag it, I'm actually going to show up here on this example. This is an example of, because each event has, this is for the advanced users, category, action, and label metadata. So you can see here with the brackets, those are dynamic pieces. So you'd have your category, it would be called navigation, and what the name of your feature is, and what position it was sitting in. Your action would be the page that it happened on, and your label would be the page that it's going to. So the way this would play out, on the right-hand side, you see a screenshot of the Forum 1 homepage. You can see that we have our big header, we have a call to action button, our promo button, we have a whole bunch of features in a nice little grid, we've got a second promo button for the newsletter, and we have 4 footer promos for each of our offices. So the way that this would play out is that within the categories, because the categories are the things that are so unique, the way I would label this is the top one, I would say promo button 1. So then I know whenever I see, even if the promo button goes to a newsletter, or if the promo button goes to our services areas, or if it goes to an event, it doesn't matter what the item is, I know promo button 1 was clicked. So that helps us really parse out the difference between, is it because I put it on the home page, or is it because the item was really cool? So you can A/B test and putting different items in different places to see how everything performs. This I find really helpful for home pages, especially with clients that have a lot of contention around who gets to promote what on the home page. We can show that the home page doesn't matter as much. We want to get really good quality content on there. So if you put a less interesting piece of information in a big promo spot, it doesn't help you out much.
Organizations are inherently political. There's a lot of infighting. Hopefully you work in one of those where they'd like to stand by the numbers to make decisions. It won't always be the case, but at least this is some nice, cold hard facts to ways to look at it. Autumn, which way? I'm a segue real quick.
Yeah.
For A/B testing, are there any tools that you would recommend for trying this out?
I tend to like Optimizely a lot. It integrates nicely with Google Analytics, which I love. It is really easy as a data nut myself to end up with so many platforms that are disparate, and trying to map the data back together is very challenging. So I am all for all the tools that through the APIs you can map the data back together in nicely and cleanly. So Optimizely is definitely my choice.
Cool.
So there we go. Was there any questions at all for that? Yeah, Tina.
Yes, so we do have one. So from Paneet, to install Google Tag Manager, do we have to replace existing tracking codes with GTM code or keep both codes?
Yes, so what will happen if you install Google Tag Manager along with your existing events? Like let's take the situation. You're using Google Analytics. You have a custom implementation already. Custom implementation meaning you have some things that are custom tagged. You're tagging external links or emails or whatever it might be. You must remove and strip out all of those tags from the core of your site before installing Google Tag Manager. Otherwise, you run the risk, and this is why I said it was so important to do your homework ahead of time, you run the risk of double tracking all your users. I ran into a site and inherited a site once that they're like, oh yeah, we just installed Google Tag Manager, just go ahead, you can use it now, without stripping out everything. And it was interesting because I was able to look in the analytics and show like a week before all their traffic doubled, and I was like, wow, what are they doing now that they weren't doing before? Their traffic just super spiked and it's staying at that high level. But one way you can check to see if your site's double checking is that if all your metrics are even numbered. Every page has an even number of visitors. Every page has an even number of page user sessions. So making sure that you're not double tracking everything. So you'll need to strip everything out, install it, and then install all your events through the Google Tag Manager. So that's important.
Cool. And then just to follow up to your A/B testing feature, I think this came up already, but just to go through, do you not recommend or suggest Google Analytics A/B testing feature?
I'm not in love with it. I started playing with it for a bit. I found it challenging enough, and other services so much stronger that I did not invest the time to really break it down. I know that Google Analytics is constantly updating, changing. To my knowledge, it hasn't updated its A/B tool in the last year. But I think while it works, there are a lot of other products that are just a lot stronger out there that make it a lot easier to run the tests. So, okay. Great.
Next question. How can I tell if congressional staff are using my site?
So, this question can actually be expanded to so many different audience types.
Right.
How can I tell how many people from a certain country are coming to my site? How can I tell how many people from universities or research organizations are coming to my site? How many people from this government agency or from the State Department are coming to my site? These all kind of follow the same format here. And I find this extremely useful for not only being able to tell my boss, yes, this many congressional staff came to my site, but also be able to show across the board what was that behavior, what makes them unique compared to others in order to make sure that we're serving that audience as best we can. So numero uno, create a segment based on the network name. So there is a great report within the audience section, technology and network, where you can find congressional users. I'm just going to pop over here for a moment to be able to show you. This is, so we're within audience, within technology, and then network. So I'm actually going to turn off this for now. Hey, move. Come on. So by default, cancel. Sorry, I want to get rid of this because this is on here already. So this tool, or this report here, is extremely helpful. But what you're going to get is all the network names for all your users coming to your site. Now, a challenge here is that you can't just across the board look at it and get all this information. You're like, At first glance, this is kind of whatever. It doesn't mean a whole lot because most users are coming to the site via kind of a generic network, either from their home, from their office. Their office is part of a much larger network and so forth. I mean, Time Warner cable internet is not people from Time Warner coming to your site. These are just people who have subscribed and used that tool or use that service. So there's over 6,000. So one of the things I do here is, give yourself a nice big group of people, and then you can start recognizing some of these names as you go through. U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So that's interesting to be able to see, what are my pieces. So let's say you're interested specifically in Congress, and because there's so few users, because it's a very small audience of people compared to like the world, it's good to know what those network names are. And we've actually included them in the presentation here for Congress. There are 2 network names that you want to be aware of. You want to make sure that you are looking at specifically United States Senate and U.S. House of Representatives. This is specifically how they spell it and how they do it. So I'm going to just grab these, and you'll have these. This is all part of the blog post also. So if you're interested in looking at those, what you can do is you can go to the top of this page. You can click Advanced. Service provider is House of Representatives. I do a regular expression. And regular expressions allow you to do a this or that. Out of default, Google Analytics does not allow you to do or statements. So what I'm going to do is United States Senate. A pipe is an or, and then U.S. House of Representatives, and making sure it says that regular expression. So if I do that, I push Enter and apply. I'm going to be able to look at, okay, look at this. So I have people from the U.S. House of Representatives, U.S. Senate, United States Senate. And we can see how many sessions there were, how many times, what their bounce rate was. Okay, it's a pretty high bounce rate, but it's a little bit higher than our average users, which is 42%. Taking a look at the average page views, so they are spending time on the site. Looking at multiple pages and their time on page. So you can see all the information about them. So let's say we want to look at like what pages these people looked at specifically. And in that instance, if you want to go beyond, this is how many people came to my site from that audience, that's when you want to get out of just this report and you want to create a segment. I would love to hear from you guys how often segments are used. I find for most of our clients, segment is one of the most underused fantastic functionalities. But essentially a segment allows you to create a new segment, and I always just by default use the conditions under the advanced piece. So I say I want to find people under my network that contain, and it's that same piece that we just looked at, U.S. Senate, and I'm going to use my pipe again, and I'm going to say I want people who matches my regex. That's not work.
And just, I'm just going to jump in for a second here. I realize we're just over 1 o'clock. For those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, we did mention that since we had so many questions that came in, we are going to make ourselves available to stay on longer. If you can't stay, don't worry, because we're going to make sure that this is part of the recording. So you'll receive this in the next couple of days. If you're able to stay, great. If not, just know that you'll be able to follow up with this afterwards. If you did have a question that wasn't answered today, also feel free to email us directly at info@form1.com. We may cover your question in the next couple of minutes or after you leave, but feel free to reach out to us directly, and Autumn can get back to you personally. So just back to you.
Yeah, sorry. And while you were doing that, the drop-down you want is the service provider. So the service provider regex, and then it's the exact piece that you have on here. The nice thing is you create your segments. Your summary of users is always on the right-hand side, so you can confirm, yep, that's what I was looking for. That's correct.
And just an FYI for those of you on the line, we want to clarify that even though Google is picking up the U.S. House of Representatives or U.S. Senate, that doesn't mean that it's every congressman. If I'm a congressman and I'm at my home and I'm going to your website, I won't be lumped into that group. This is just analyzing traffic that comes directly from the computers in the Senate or the U.S. House.
Yeah. That's exactly what that is. So if they're connected to that network, or if they're VPNing in from their home, it also will track that. Sure. But if they're on their phone, if they're on their BlackBerry, they're not being tracked. Or if they're from home, or if they're at their summer house, whatever it might be. But this allows you, once you have this segment turned on, which is Congress, I'm going to take off this one. You can actually now just browse all reports in the site to see. So I'm just looking at all my pages. You can browse all your reports and see how are people in Congress using the site. Interestingly enough, on this site, they happen to be looking up their staff and career opportunities. So that's entertaining. But yes, that's the general gist of how you can create that. I tend to use these for university people, government officials, and or a full range of ones, just by browsing what happens to be in there in order to take a look at deeper things. So great. How to create segment 5 minutes.
Cool. There's a few questions that have come out following that.
Yes.
We've got a couple from Kate Gruter, sorry. Is there any chance that mobile devices are being tracked from government and are somehow picked up in the congressional segments?
There is a small chance. I do not know offhand if government issued BlackBerries. I believe some of them are connected in via the VPN systems. I know for State Department they are. I do not know congressionally across the board how those are interacting. I believe you can probably Google that and find out how their systems are working. A lot of times it's public knowledge.
Cool. And then one from Joseph. Do you find the demographics and not network information in Google Analytics reliable or only useful as broad indicators?
Broad indicators are the key here. So I'm just going to happen to pull up our demographic information here for overview. So the key here is to understand what percentage of your users are reporting. Interesting enough, for the Form 1 site, we have a pretty high ratio of people reporting. It's 62%. So there are 38% of people, we don't know what age group they are. Maybe all 38% of them happen to be over 65. Probably not. But you have to keep in mind what the sampling rate is. Every site is different for what the sampling rate is. Google doesn't know everything about everyone, surprisingly. But that is helpful to keep in mind. I tend to use it as a trending analysis. So if you're doing an outreach campaign and you're really trying to bring in people of a certain age group, like the 40-plus group, or young folks of college age, so the 18 to 24 group, you want to be able to see those trends being higher in those categories that you're looking for, and you want to see an upwards trend in the focus areas that you're going after. But I would not put a ton of weight in it, as in saying, oh, we got 3 more, yay. What you want to see is a nice big jump in them before you start celebrating too much. Hope that kind of helps clarify that one. But you can create also just a note. You can create segments like we were just looking at. You can do segments of different age groups also. So if you have specific content for a specific age group, you can see if they're spending more time in that or not. So that's helpful. Okay. Was there another one? Okay, great. So we'll just get back onto this piece. So creating a segment based on network name. So this segment stuff is some of the most powerful things that I find useful. So the next question is, how can I trace a single user's path from the time they arrive on the site to the time they leave? So I'm guessing a number of people can guess the answer to this one based on the questions I've answered so far. You can't. Google Analytics is not ace at identifying or creating useful reports on the aggregate level for people's individuals' behaviors. The big thing that they do now is they have Google Analytics user IDs, and that does help us get closer. And they're valuable in helping us tie together devices. So if someone's on their phone, then they're on their laptop, then they're on their home computer, then they're on their work computer. Those user IDs do allow you to combine that user behavior, so you're no longer count. It helps us not overcount our new users. For those of you who are newer to Google Analytics in my opinion, over-reports new versus returning users simply because people are bouncing across different devices. So the user IDs help with that problem. They also help you in integrating with your CRM to check off major conversion points such as event registration and donations. But like I said before, you're not tracking from where they came in to where they converted on an individual's level. But something you may be interested in is taking a look at the segments to analyze specific subset of users and activity through the user flow reports. So the user flow reports, I don't put a ton of weight in them, but they can be helpful when taking a look at it. So here's the mess that is the user flow report. By default, this is usually set from like country or location. But this first left page, because the user specifically requested to find out, or the question asker asked specifically about landing page, you can take a look at landing pages. So these are the pages that users came in from and where they advanced into. So a lot of times, I'm going to go into this a lot more in depth in the blog post because this gets a little tricky at times, is that a lot of times you want to see where people came in, but then you want to not see all this mess. You want to see specifically where they come in, where they flow to, how frequently do they convert. So let's take a look at, maybe there's a page that we specifically want to take a look at. So a lot of career information on this one. So let's just say from the home page. You can click on it, right-click on it, and explore traffic through here. This allows you to just focus in on this page and how people came in and where they went. So from the home page, we're still looking at Congress, so let's take Congress off of here. Okay, let's go back. So we can go ahead and look at any page. Let's go slow. So let's go ahead and just take a look at explore traffic through here. So now we're just looking at a single page. Right here is our single page that we're looking at. So step 0. So we're focusing in on open positions. And we're seeing this is where they came from most likely and where they went to. And we have a major drop-off. 84% of the people dropped off. But, you know, you can go backwards more to go to where they came from. You can also go forward more to see where they went to. This one happened to drop off after they hit this point. But if you're looking for any specific page, like let's say in the very beginning, like we were only looking at career-oriented ones, let's say we want to find another page. You can actually click on this little arrow, this little pen mark here, and you can write down any URL that you're interested in and taking a look at more. So let's just say that I'm interested in services. We'll scroll through and grab something. Approach to social marketing. And we can call this, this allows you just to put a very easy name on something. So it'll show and display as social marketing here. It'll show us what's going on. Oh, one of the big things here is that you have to have a certain level of data in your site before it'll display. But the blog post will go into this more specifically about how you can use it in order to drill down into specific pages and see how people are flowing. So you can get a nice clean diagram similar to this, where this is where people are coming in from, this is what they're doing, this is how frequently they're dropping off, and this is where they're going. So you can kind of see where the cow paths are. I call it the cow paths. They're not necessarily following the navigation. You're just kind of tracking where everyone kind of flowed through. So that is that one. Yeah, so that is concludes the number of ones that we kind of selected for this range. Were there any other questions that came in along the way for different pieces?
Yeah, so let's backtrack a little bit. We have one from Puneet. He's wondering, is it possible to track competition organization visitors using service provider or host name?
Oh, so if somebody, like you're doing, like Save the Whales, you have a whale organization, and you have a competing organization that's also trying to save whales, you want to see how often they come to your site? Is that kind of the idea here? Maybe. So the key here is to snoop through those service provider names. A lot of organizations that are small are just going to show up under their bigger service provider name and not under an independent one. But if they have a big enough organization, they will show up. The other tidbit of problem with that one is that if you have enough visitors, so you saw a moment ago, is that you have to have a certain threshold of users before Google will display any data, because it does not allow you to track an individual. Google does that for privacy concerns. It does collect it, but it does not allow you to run those reports. So after you hit a certain threshold, so let's say you have a big competitor, and that big competitor is constantly on your website, sniffing around all over the place and doing stuff, then you'll have enough data in order to run it. But if you have under 20 people, you're probably not going to be able to get any useful data out of it.
I think that's it for now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And I do want to emphasize is that you'll get an email shortly with later this week with both the recording, but I really recommend checking out the blog post. We did go through these questions in advance and wrote out each step of the process with screenshots and additional resources online in order to learn Tag Manager, implement it stronger, do custom events, check out more advanced segments, lots of different tidbits that I really recommend taking a look at.
Cool. And of course, if you do have any final questions, again, if we weren't able to maybe address one of your specific questions, we're more than happy to do so directly. If you just send us an email to info@forum1.com, or you can contact us through social media as well. We're happy to get back to you and answer those questions. Mm-hmm. And also, this is meant to be kind of the first of many similar type sessions. Autumn is always up for talking about analytics and is really happy to take questions. So we're hoping that this might be more of a regular thing. It is the first time we've done it, but based on interest, I think it's something we'll do again soon.
Yeah, and if your organization is new to Google Analytics or you're interested in doing more, Forum 1 is really happy to talk with you about doing more advanced reporting or more advanced implementations. We work with our clients as partners in both training up the internal staff and then also supporting through more advanced features and functionality. So if you're ever interested in that, or if you're interested in just doing a Google Analytics audit to better understand how well the system is implemented and what additional features and functionalities could be added to get stronger reporting, we also offer that service. So great, a little extra plug there. So thank you so much for everyone who hung on to the end. We really appreciate it, and I hope it was very helpful.
All right. Thanks for coming, everyone, and we'll see you online or maybe in person soon. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.